All right. Who's this? Whitney. What up, Whit?
Hey, sorry, I just realized what time it is.
Hi, we just started recording, so we're
Wait,
good.
and if you don't know, now you know. Okay. This is class number 5. Let me remind you all that we started this class because we thought that it's only appropriate that everyone understands the Bible in a realized way. We're pretty fortunate, us Orthodox Jews, because we have a lot of commentary, a lot of concept, and a lot of understanding. Things are explained to us in a different way. A lot is offered in Judaism to be able to understand every aspect of the Bible. But the main goal was not to induct or convert or engage anyone in understanding Judaism. It's more for the sake of helping people understand what the Bible is for and how it's applicable in everyday life, and that God's not a guy in the sky with a beard or blonde hair and blue eyes, and he ain't coming down to save nobody, and no one's coming to the rescue. And the point is really to help um, other human beings to stand for something, like our friend Charlie Kirk did. And because he was a phenomenal parent and a good husband and an honorable person, we kind of dedicate this class to him.
And it goes right along with this class because today we want to talk about choosing life. We want to talk about several important subjects, um, but how to choose life based on the principles that we find in the Bible. And it's all over. It's not just choosing life in terms of not murdering somebody physically, but choosing life in the way we think, choosing life in the way we act, choosing life in our everyday. Um, we want to, as we choose life, we also want to talk about planning to, not planning to fail. And as much as Charlie Kirk felt a little bit like for many, like a setback, because we lost a person who was truly morally correct, and he brought concepts and he brought truth to a lot of people, and he educated a lot of our newer generation, that college generation of kids who seem to be very lost in social media, very lost in whatever the society is pushing, whatever story the society is pushing. So from home we need to be strong with our kids and teach them the right way and teach them to be leaders. We talked about it in other classes. Teach them to know, because when we know, then nobody can tell us anything. That's the difference. And also when you know, then you're not scared, and you can move forward with more precision and with more conviction. You give yourself an opportunity to learn and really participate in your life and not just follow whatever others say. Really be your own boss. And you teach your kids that, and they grow up to be strong and not letting whatever social media or whatever the social trend of the moment is take them. They can discern what's what and what's not, or at least what should be.
I think one of the things that I value the most um, about being able to choose life, is that I recognized a long time ago that I'm not interested in watching anybody else's movie. If I'm going to watch a movie, I'm going to watch Martin Scorsese or Pedro Almodovar. I'm not interested in the movie that they're presenting for me. And I understood how to make my own movie. I've been called and accused of being non-compliant, but um, I like being non-compliant. So I learned an interesting saying. It's not mine. I learned it living in Texas, that I'd rather die on my feet than to live on my knees. So I'm not interested in dying, but I do understand the value of creating your own movie. And you can fuel it, but the only way you can fuel it is if you have a complete allegiance to what you understand to be true. And complete allegiance comes with the ability to take responsibility and in seeing how reality unfolds before you, for you, and stop the blame game and accuse you. Well, I'm not observant because religious. I don't need to read Psalms and I don't pray because God is angry. Everyone wants to punch holes in God. No one wants to really look at the bigger picture and the deeper understanding that the Bible was created for people of all walks of life. Moses channeled information. If you look at today's reality, you can say this was a perfect channel for a manual for the human experience. And thousands of years later, Jesus didn't say deviate from what Moses said. Even the pedophile prophet said, you have to believe in what Moses said. You can't deviate from it. There is a morality to devotion um, in in Islam. Islam offers complete immersion, complete surrender of your desires, and distraction by the human experience. So the reason I chose to honor Charlie is because he stood for something, and he inspired people uh, to have an allegiance, a clear allegiance, without deviation. I don't care if he preached about Jesus. He must have done something right because the guys, everyone speaks about him for 2,500 years. So it's an extraordinary human being that came to this world and did something different.
I mean, I think there's also a disconnect where there was, in that point in time, with the Romans in charge, they made it a political and religious movement. They merged it together. And so they deleted parts of books and writings and even verses from the Bible, the Old Testament, that were key in what Yeshua was saying. And it is said that he walked within the confines of Torah. He followed the Torah law, and he said not to deviate. But it was not quite convenient at the moment for what the Romans needed. They wanted control of the people, so they tweaked and they changed some verses. And it's been known for years that there's books that were left out from the original.
It cannot be minimum. You can't minimize anyone's religion and say, you know, people want to blow themselves up in the name of God. Muhammad's the most popular name in Europe, in Germany, which was an Aryan nation. Uh, the level of devotion and commitment from Muslim men that I know, it's impenetrable. So nobody's minimized here. The idea is to help people understand in a universal way, what does it really mean to have devotion and who am I praying to? And so we're going to segue into the first question. And the first question was,
if God isn't a big guy in the sky, who are we praying to when we pray? Do we pray to ourselves? Do we pray to consciousness? How does this concept work?
So if you understand, let's start with the fact that we are souls going through a human experience. If that's so, and you accept that, which is an impenetrable fact, there's no question that we're energy bodies, and this physical body is a physical manifestation of cells that formed in the human experience. Well, then you're not praying to anyone by verbalizing your intention, whether it's gratitude or intention. You are directing your intent through your speech. So you're not praying to the guy in the sky, you're verbalizing gratitude to insinuate that God is all around. So now it could be, you're deviating from the creator and somehow making everything God. No, it's not. It's not a person. It's an energetic force that's constantly participating in our process. In Judaism, in the morning prayer for men, it says, or for both men and women, it says, "Blessed is he who says and does. Blessed is he who spoke and the world came to be." It didn't speak. It's not a person. It expressed itself. And we are its expression, and our lives are our expression. So we direct our intention and through our deliberate intent, we direct how we co-create. Therefore, you're not praying to anything. It's not idolatry. You're simply using the power to effectively co-create. The reason we need prayer is for gratitude.
I think also there's a concept of when we speak, we vibrate that which we speak. So if we consider that God is all that is, well, it's everything. It's not, we can't pinpoint it to a single place. We can't say, oh, we have to look up when we pray. It's even we are part of that energy. And as we as energy beings, as we speak, we vibrate everything that we speak. That's why they say that we should be careful what we say and what we listen to. Whatever music we're singing and repeating, we're vibrating that, our cells are vibrating that, and we're becoming that. We're embodying that energy. So as we pray and we verbalize energy, we embody the energy of gratitude. And so we align ourselves more to in that vibration of what we call God or creator.
So you merge with the oneness. There is a time for supplication because in every religion has a structured supplication. Supplication meaning to ask for yourself. But the way supplication has been presented to us is in a begging sense. We don't need to beg anyone. Everything already exists, and it exists here, right here with us. It's a question of what level of reality you choose to live on. So if a person is a thief, he's surrounded by people who steal, whether they steal his time or they steal ideas or they steal in general just are thieves. You receive who you are, meaning you're constantly receiving energies from the creative force, and you verbalize your intention, meaning if you want to achieve something, or you want to get somewhere, or you want to accomplish in a deal, or I don't know, whatever your agenda is, you have to can you Mariana, can you mute yourself? So in order to receive something, you have to verbalize the intention. That's what it's for. It's not to ask the guy in the sky so that you can be successful. As a matter of fact, the more devoted you are, the more ritual life. We've spoken about this before. The more devotion you have, and the more precise you are about your devotion, the more effective you become in co-creating a reality you truly desire instead of living at the mercy of reality.
So it saying the more devoted you are and the more observant you are means you allow yourself to let go in a way. And when you let go and let God, then things start happening for you, but you don't understand why. So I think as human beings, a huge challenge that we have and that we deal with is the idea of controlling the way we want things to happen. So we ask God.
Example
Yeah.
of I have an example of a client that I've been dealing with for a year, and he struggled. He said he struggled with a former business partner, and he was in a huge lawsuit for a very significant amount of money. And the issue was is that he had a story about his ex-partner, that the partner is actually creating all these obstacles. He doesn't want to pay, and he's a thief, and he's a bad person, and all of these verbal kind of accusations. Well, in our first interaction, I said, you have to accept one thing. This has to do with what we're talking about, I promise. You have to accept one thing, that if your former partner is a thief, thieves don't pay back. Only normal people pay back. That means if you stop calling him a thief, then your perception of him will change your relationship with him, and he'll pay you. So as long as you continue to say, well, I'm praying that the guy is okay, you don't need to pray for the guy. The truth is, you need to pray for yourself to change your perception, because it's through your perception that you've created all the obstacles that you're in. It's not your religion. It's not your daddy. It's not your mommy. It's not your husband or the law. It's you and your perception. So when a person asks, well, what am I? Am an idolatrous if I'm praying to all these things? You're not praying to anything. You're praying to the divine force because it's all around you. And it's how you become a vehicle to co-create reality effectively and precisely.
So you're saying that as we pray, what we do. Lucy, as me.
I'll continue. Sorry, the dogs are going nuts because somebody rang them. So you would say, well, how come if you look at um, a reality and say, why do we need to be precise about praying? Well, because the light of the creative force shines brighter at a certain time of the day. And when you submit what is called to the will of God, what's the will of God? To create. It doesn't punish, reward, or destroy. We've addressed this as well. So that means submitting to the will of God, meaning moving out of the way and soothing your perception with devotion. How does it work technologically? So if I want to effectively disarm my partner so that I can win in a lawsuit, I have to stop the rhetoric about him and his agenda and what he wants to do to me. Because if you're constantly in your story about what he wants to do to you and how he's not going to pay you and how bad he is, he's never going to pay you.
So with this story, there's a reality that your partner exists, right? Mm-hmm. You exist, but your perception of him, your story of him creates the interaction, the relationship that you have with him and the responses that you get from him. So as you change this interaction, and of course this applies to everything in life, then you change the reality, the way it's perceived by you in the moment for you. So even though, let's say in this moment, Vlad and I were sharing the same reality, he has his own reality and I still have my own reality within the same reality that we are changing. So as we change the perception of whatever it is.
I tell them the story about the dentist. And so see the dentist, how it changed, accommodated. So I want to jump to a quick
It's
story, and then we'll go on to the next portion of the question and segue into it.
just a sec. It's like we keep each other hostage in our own beliefs. We keep the other one hostage in our own beliefs.
Absolutely.
I mean, when we have some uh, some box in which we contain them, we don't let them be more than that box in which we limited them in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we also keep ourselves hostage because we get stuck in that train of thought that this person is this and that's all they can be. It's the same with diagnosis. It limits the possibilities of who we are and who the other person is.
This concept, what you're saying, Marush, is very important about keeping ourselves hostage. You're keeping a perception of an individual in your mind and in your heart of a certain way, and you cannot allow them, because of your anger and frustration or whatever it is that your need to be right, you cannot change your perception of them, which means you are then captured in your mind and in your heart by their image and your internal dialogue with them. Therefore, you cannot let go and let God, because there is no room for the flow so that your story can change, because you're so attached to being right, and your nervous system, all it's doing is reacting and depleting you. So really, they're not achieving anything. Your relationship with them is not achieving anything. And most important, you're not achieving anything. And you cannot go to the next step of achievement. By the way, the guy we're talking about won his case and then called me. He said, look, I made all this money, but I just can't let him go. There's another half. I said, look, if you keep him accountable, listen to this. If you hold the guy, your former partner, accountable, you're not going to be able to use the enormous amount of money that you made from the first half of the lawsuit. More importantly, you can't allow him to move on, because the guy had contacted some clergy and wanted to make peace and sit down and have a conversation. I said, well, are you ready to have a conversation? You ready to let the guy go? He paid you half the amount of money. No, but I deserve more. Well, then you're a hostage, like Maria said. Not only are you a hostage, but you can't use this tremendous amount of money to move forward and to go make yourself 100 times more, because you're holding him accountable. I want to bring this up and segue into the next section, next portion of this question, because we allow our children, and as children, we do this to our parents. We hold them accountable and accuse them of doing things to us, and that's why we can't move forward. Well, as long as somebody else is responsible for where you are, you can never get ahead. More, not only because someone else is responsible and you can't correct them, but that energy that's intended for your soul and for you to be able to effectively co-create what you want, it's not yours. You're redirecting it into the other person and diminishing your ability to go and create 10 times more. So really, you're possessed by them. I see you on. Tell me.
So does this pertain also to good things that we have our parents done to us, or we're still going to be hostages? Because of you, I'm so successful. Because of you, I am so good with my children. So is that also being held as hostage?
I don't think, you can't claim, and you and I both know this, we both have crazy parents. I just called my mother 10 minutes.
Ina, don't listen to him.
I just talked to her 10 minutes ago. I said, I swear to you, I promise. I just talked to her. I said, Mom, I'm this way. I know I'm different. I'm this way because it's what you did for me. She gave me that drive. She gave me that desire to constantly learn and constantly engage in the process. So we don't entertain, Anna, you know this to be true. We don't entertain the good stuff. It doesn't consume our minds. I'm not constantly thinking about how great my mother was to
But
me.
it should. It should. The truth is that it should. And if we allow ourselves to entertain our minds with all the good stuff, then that's what we become, and then we get so much more, and then we don't get stuck, because the stuckness comes from getting stuck in whatever holds us back.
There's a great I'm not a great fan of Jerry and Esther Hicks. They've been around forever, and they wrote a book together called The Art of Allowing. And allowing means allowing yourself to process the information and say, um, uh, she was. I don't need to entertain her goodness. In fact, if I entertain how good she is or she was to me, then my perception of her gives her life. I give life to those qualities, and then I choose that relationship with her. But I can only entertain those qualities of goodness and all the positive things that she contributed to if I'm resolved myself. If I'm unresolved, then I can say, my brother is an asshole. I can't continue to interact with him. Why? Because he did these terrible things to me. How can I continue life? Look at what he did. He pulled me into this process. If not, once I resolve myself and recognize that that's where I was, I received my brother because that's where my soul was. That's the interaction I chose with him. It's the interaction I chose with his wife. I can't move forward because I'm keeping myself hostage. There's no room for more God because I'm so consumed by what was done for me. But nothing was done for me. I chose that reality. I was there. This is where I was vibrationally. I was needy. I'm in the same place. I stole my own time. I was, a substance abuser. I was indifferent towards myself. So people treated me indifferently, and my brother didn't care about me.
Can you say that a lot of times that we have these situations where we look back and we see how the other person or the situation failed for ourselves? Could you say that that was truly an opportunity that we had in the moment to overcome whatever it is that we needed to overcome
No
in the
one
moment?
fails for us. No one, no, my father didn't fail me. This is what he knew. These are the tools he had. And it didn't engage me in daily studies about consciousness or my religion, but I saw him be precise. If he put a nail in a wall the wrong way, he would redo the entire wall.
Yeah, but you needed to see this.
Right.
You needed
Absolutely.
to experience this, him now giving you.
I wish that I was so precise. I have remnants of my mother's and father's precision. They're obsessively precise. So I cannot move into my life and move forward unless I accept if I'm out of control, I encounter someone who takes control because I'm out of control. Somebody needs to take control. So they see me for what I am. They engage me in being in methodical, concrete, deliberate, and then I can be consistent and effective in creating what I want. But if somebody else is responsible for me being inconsistent and not precise, I don't stand a chance. I cannot become effectively co-creative. I cannot direct. I don't need to ask the guy in the sky anything. It's up to you. I find it incredibly disturbing. Even clergy in my community, I just heard one of them say something yesterday. Oh, well, this will work for me. We'll see if it works for me. No, it's not going to work if you don't make it work. It doesn't work by itself. So then, whatever concepts you learn here, if you don't take them and go and make it work, it's just more theory. You're just a bunch of spiritual materialists trying to accumulate information so that you can sound intelligent.
So how do you merge the idea of everything being by divine providence? Everything is divinely orchestrated for you to have certain experiences so you can move forward. And then within that divine orchestration, you have the free will to choose to fix it now, or you need 10 more lessons to get to the point.
How do I accept divine orchestration? Well, if you call yourself an atheist, forget about it. We're speaking on deaf ears. But if you understand that there's a creative force that's constantly participating in our process, well, then it doesn't make mistakes. It's perfect. It's we who screwed up the world. It's we who make bad decisions. It's we who lie, cheat, and steal. It's we who do and choose all of these things. So it's we who choose which level of its creative force we're going to use to co-create our reality. So if we encounter a mate and we live with a husband that doesn't value us, then it's because you're not valuing yourself.
You touched upon atheists.
Uh-huh.
What do you do with them?
Nothing.
You know that they need
It's not
help.
your job to do anything with them.
They are asking for help.
Did they come and ask you for help?
Yes, but they don't want to hear about God.
Right. So if they come and ask you for help and you're faced with an atheist, well, there's a non-believer in you. And what you're getting to do is truly verbalize what it is that you need to do for yourself. When I encounter, there's an interesting story about the leader of the Hasidic community, the Menachem Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I think the Alter, the one before him, that someone came to see him for a private audience, and after the guy left, the Rebbe was hysterical, crying for hours, and wouldn't let anybody into his office. Schneerson, right? So his secretary finally knocked on his door, walked into his office, and said, "Rebbe, why are you crying?" He said, "I'm crying because I want to understand how this person that just came to see me is an expression of me." And for those of you that know, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was a complete holy man, probably the Moses of the last 500 years. Is a guy who was completely always 24/7 connected. Tens of thousands of people came to see him, and he was fully realized. He would tell you, you would say, "Listen, I'm mining for gold," and he would give light to your intentions, and then you'd find a gold mine the next week. And what the guy had said, finally, the rabbi shared with his secretary what he said to him. The guy admitted to having relations with corpses. He worked in a funeral home. He would say, "How is it possible that a holy person like the Rebbe would encounter this expression of himself?" He understood these concepts. He understood realized reality. So if you encounter an atheist, you are given an opportunity to convince yourself of believing in God. There's nothing for you to do to them. It's you who needs convincing. That's why you're having to face them. When people come here for retreat, I know my wife wants to say something, one last thing. When people come here for retreat and they do a month retreat, right? And they come here with, let's say, God forbid, prostate cancer, and they go back to wherever they came from, and they don't have prostate cancer anymore. And I call them a week after they arrive back home, and I ask them, "What have you been hearing from the people you encounter?" And they say, "Oh, everyone's so against what I did and rejecting and challenging." I asked this question purposely because when they left me, if they encounter constant challenges, it's their internal dividedness that's causing them to encounter challenges. They're encountering how they internally feel. And if I call them a week after the retreat and say, "Hey, what's happening? How are you feeling?" They say, "Everywhere I go, everyone confirms that I did the right thing. I feel incredible." It's because they've come to terms and understand and now have an allegiance to a way. They chose a path and they stick to it. That's how success comes. Look, I'm being totally serious. I honor them for it. If you look at, well, if you look at the, the Gulf states,
Oh.
the Gulf states, UAE, Dubai, they don't miss one prayer. Well, that's why they're so successful, because of order. It doesn't matter if there's consciousness there. They have order, and it's impenetrable. They'll do it wherever they are, on time, precisely. So that causes complete submission, and that submission is letting go and letting God. Because wherever you are in your thoughts, regardless of where you are, if you stop no matter what you're doing during the day, and you're in your loop, your mental insanity, and you're swirling into the toilet and making up stories about the future, and all of a sudden you have the devotion and the consistency to stop and pray, that's letting go and letting God.
Well, of course, because you pull yourself up from wherever you are, out of whatever it is that's going on in your head, and you align yourself to that vibration, and you go back to center.
Instead of your insanity. So prayer, what's the second part of that question?
If God's in everything around us, how are we monotheistic?
We are monotheistic because there's only one source of everything.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean we're like when we say that God is all that is and is all around us. That doesn't mean we're praying to the table now because God's in the table.
Right.
God's is just an expression in the form of table.
If you look at a commandment, and now all of the Abrahamic religions have the same commandments. They might have been translated, but the original ones from Moses, one says, "Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain." What does that mean? I can't say goddamn. Nonsense. The idea is that because you are godlike, you are a soul, and you direct the creative process through what you express. It expressed itself into the human experience. We are its expression, and our lives are our expression. So then if you're consistent and you keep your word, most importantly to yourself, then your word gives you the ability to effectively co-create what you desire. If you say, "Oh, I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock and go to the gym," and you get up at 5:15, you're already not precise. Then your results are not going to be precise. If you want precision, you have to be precise.
Would you include thoughts and feelings within this concept? Because we're talking about speaking, right? We're talking about expressing ourselves. But what about thoughts and feelings? Because a lot of times we get so consumed by the thoughts and feelings, and that's really what sets us back. Even more so than what we emote, when we say, when we express.
Yeah, I mean, it's really what the class was for. This one, well, the intention of this class is to setting yourself up for failure, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, if you get caught up in your feelings and your emotions, then you don't allow yourself, even if you're saying the right things. So let's say that I am saying the right things, but I'm still consumed by my thoughts and my emotions because I have this need to
Can't be effective.
control or whatever, then I'm not allowing myself to 100% align to this force that makes life perfect, to say it in a way.
So we talked about this in other classes. If you look at an octopus, right? Let's say an octopus, that's the Godhead, and we are its tentacles. All it does is create. We direct the creative process. If you're consumed by your stories about the future, the past, or your lack of a relationship, or how things are not going to happen for you, it doesn't happen. You can't fuel the outcome you truly want, and you actually fuel the outcome you don't want. I had an experience in Taos, New Mexico. Have I told about Mary?
No.
So in 2005, I was treating a woman with a tumor in her spine. And I've had many of these experiences. My questions are always the same. So when I see a disembodied soul, I ask them have they ever been in the human experience and how they can help me effectively, be more effective in treating others. And I saw a female energy. I asked it, "Who are you?" She said, "I'm Miriam." I said, "Have you ever been in the human experience?" She said, "Yes." And I'm known as Mary. I said, "Well, I don't really subscribe to that." She said, I said, "How did you become who you are?" She said, "I was a simple woman. People made me who I am." I said, "What does that mean?" She said, "Because they hold me in the highest regard because of their concept of me. I became a master soul." I said, "Where does all illness begin?" Remember, the first portion is a confirmation to the fact that when you hold someone in the highest regard, then your perception of them, less your story, gives you proof of what you believe to be true, and that's the relationship you have to nurture.
It also confirms that we are all energy beings, and whatever we think and feel of others affects them.
Right. Like the guy in the lawsuit. So
I
if his,
remember, I'm sorry, I remember that when we were in Taos, New Mexico. The boom.
Thanks for the confirmation, Mom. So imagine the guy in the lawsuit. If his partner is a thief, he can't be anything else. Thieves don't pay back; they just steal, right? So unless he changes his perception of the guy and holds him in a high regard, less his nervousness, less his story, less the additions that he has to the story, he can't dissolve it. He can't receive anything from it because it's not going to give him anything back. I asked her, where does all illness begin? She said, all illness starts at the heart, that the heart is the epicenter of all feelings and emotion. I said, what do you mean? She said, because humanity is unwilling to see their part in the creative process, they don't resolve issues and they consume their hearts with their bad feelings and their emotions and their intellect with how they perceive things, their view of things. And so they consume the heart with people from the past, internal dialogues, bad feelings, unresolved feelings. That means there's no room for the flow of the creator. So you're not really receiving, you're redirecting. If we're talking about the guy in the lawsuit, he's not receiving. He's receiving from the creative force, and he redirects that energy instead of, with his perception, instead of seeing his partner in the highest regard, he redirects the energy to make his partner bad and a thief, which means he can't receive anything from him, and his heart is slowly atrophying.
And he's adding more fuel to the fire because then the guy is embodying that.
Thief, right? So then I said to her, she said, that's why there's such an incredible epidemic of breast cancer in women. I said, what? She said, yeah, because the heart, women, when they become mothers, they all they do is give. The breasts are a nurturing organ. If the heart's not receiving love and nourishment, you're not receiving. So then you're constantly giving. Not only women don't know how to receive, they're not taught to receive. More importantly, they redirect the energy that they're receiving from the creator into all of these other things that they juggle that they have a sense of urgency for. If they don't have a sense of urgency for themselves, energy doesn't go into their hearts. The organs that are located on both sides of the heart harden and atrophy, and that's where breast cancer comes from.
Even more, there are some mothers, so even not only mothers, some women that they feel guilty when they receive, when they accept something, like they don't deserve to receive.
So I'm going to ask you, Marusa, I love your contribution. I'm going to ask all of you, please, out of fairness to everyone, please raise your hand or flag me if you're going to say something so that you don't.
How
Mhm.
can I do this without
she-
starting the video? I don't
The
know how
wife
to do
will
it.
tell you.
You can do it at the bottom. You can
There's
hear the
there's a
reaction.
hand
Yeah, there's a hand that you can raise.
reaction, and just raise your hand so I know, so I don't pass over
Oh,
everybody.
oh,
There you go.
okay.
Whitney
I see
raised her
something
hand.
there. Okay,
Whitney,
okay.
what's up, Whit?
I was just gonna say that this reminds me of the Psalms. Like he gives us the desires of our heart. That's in the Psalm.
Mhm.
It's also like in the Sermon on the Mount. You know, it's talked about by Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount. But it was relevant to me right now because if this is helpful for anybody, because my mom had that dementia, and it onset like mid to late 30s, and so I just, no matter what I did, I just was carrying that with me. Like, God, please don't. I've got this baby now. Don't let me get dementia. And we ended up, when he was 13 months old, we moved into this house and didn't know it's full of mold. And so I ended up with mold illness, which I just realized like 4 or 5 months ago. We've been sick like for 3 years, and last year and a half, like very bad. And I literally thought I was getting dementia because I was having visual anomalies and I was having symptoms of her disease. Yeah. I went and got like a yeah. I went and got like a $300 eye exam to rule out what she had, and I didn't have it. Then I found this mold, and it's just mold brain. But it's like I've been processing like how did I end up here, And it's like, well, duh, because I just prayed for dementia, I prayed for like mold brain. But also in the experience though, because it's like God uses everything for good for those who love the Lord. That's in the New Testament. It's like I'm praying like, God, help me see like the opportunity in this. And like one of the opportunities is that I've realized now that my mom probably had actually a biotoxin or a mycotoxin issue with her body circulating her whole life, because she had some of the sicknesses that we've had for 2 or 3 years when they moved into this house when she was a little kid. So it's like helped me also accept her. I mean, she's dead now, but like accept her better, and navigate some of the issues that we had or whatever. But
So if you let me, I'm gonna comment on all that, if I may.
yeah, why am I wrong?
No,
Oh.
partially. You're not wrong. Nobody's wrong. It's because of remember, the framework that you've been fed and that you have learned is going to feed what you're receiving. So if you live in India and you're a Hindu and you don't realize that your circumstance, because there's no order and you're not following an order, you're going to have disorder externally. If you're a psychologist and your psychology tells you, oh, these people are narcissists, then that story is going to feed your narrative and create your circumstances. I have a client who's become a dear person to all of us. Her husband had some serious issues with his mind, his brain. He's a guy in his 50s, but he acts like he's in his 20s. They're very successful people. And she has this tendency, she wants to come up with solutions, and her desperate need for solution because she doesn't want to be in her 50s with a partner who's debilitated. So she's constantly grasping at straws with this. You're going to love this idea. And this is awesome, not just for you, but many folks on this panel. She calls me one day and says, listen, I figured it out. I know why my husband has what he has. It's mold. I said, okay, have you had a mold test? She says, but it's very funny. When I went for the mold test, I have more mold than he does. So I said, so how come you don't have what he has? She said, I don't know. So the reason you don't have what he has and you have more mold, because you're a more effective manifester of your own nonsense than he is. That's how quickly she creates her realities. She jumps from concept to concept, from a desperate need to resolve the issue, because she's vigorous and full of life and ready to roll. She does all kinds of juggles kids, juggles properties, all kinds of stuff. And he can't get it together. He doesn't remember a name of a fruit because he never resolved himself emotionally. So there's no consistent flow. He's chronologically at a level of a 23-year-old. So he doesn't have manifesting ability. He can't direct the creator's energy into creating anything effective because he's unresolved. There's no room for God. You understand? So then why is it that she doesn't have the same condition? Because whatever she chooses becomes so for her. She chose mold this week. All of a sudden, she has more mold. I said, so answer, please. Tell me, how is it that if he's sick from mold, you have more and you're not sick? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And also, I'm sorry to jump in again, but we don't inherit our parents' illness. We inherit their belief system, which in turn creates our condition.
Yeah, this was a real test for me because I believed that, you know, but then I caretook for my mom and it was just such I mean, like that was an ass kicking thing. And it was just scary, you know, scary to like look at and recognize. So okay, he took a crap.
So really what you have is what you've always had since I met you. You have an incredible ability to effectively co-create reality and whatever it is that you want. Let me remind you, my employer in Texas became your employer. Why? While you were working 12 to 14 hours a day, all of a sudden the reality opened up and you became his bestie, right? Why did that happen? Because of you. I added light to your understanding, and all of a sudden the doors opened for you to be successful.
Yeah. Well, you know, so this all happened. I'm like, we've got to get the fuck out of this house, you know, like once I realized what was going on. Sorry. And Mark offered me like a place to live on 75 acres and all of this stuff. Michael built the house, and so it's been like it's everything there is a little slower because there's so many people cook kitchen all the time, but it is funny because it's like full circle, but a much better situation.
That's you.
Huh?
That's your ability to effectively co-create. When you were consumed by the latest partner and the inability to move forward, you couldn't manifest anything. All of a sudden, you reconnected, you received, you got back your ability to effectively imagine the things that you want, and you're living in a 75-acre, I know where you're living, on a 75-acre ranch with every amenity imaginable, because that's you.
Well, I had asked God to take away I was like nervous about some stuff. So I shut my intuition down. That's like, there's a whole thing, like I know, you know, but I do see now, like I understand, you know, what is mold? Mold's like grows in moist, unaddressed, you know, situations. So it's like, we had so much that we had to just like either deal with or disconnect, you know, and so I do see it, but when y'all were talking about this, I thought he just needs me to wipe his butt, is what he's saying. That like it's he gives you the desires of your heart, and that just doesn't look like what you think it's gonna look like, you know. It's like that's what the world is showing you is the desires of your heart, and that's sometimes like the hardest thing to recognize.
You have to refine them.
Myself, just all I thought about was getting dementia at this age. Even
you have to refine the desires of your heart. Remember,
right.
It's the story of Jacob. He struggled with himself and dislocated his hip. He threw himself out of balance because he was attached to his own story that his brothers abandoned Esau, and he needs to prepare a sword to fight him. Right, so he's so consumed by his story, he dislocates his hip. But the truth is, his father taught him how to choose his outcomes, and he comes out with gifts, and his brother embraces him. That story can apply to all of us. We're all Jacob.
Right. I have to go wipe his butt, so I'm gonna
enjoy.
Connect my video.
Better you than me. Yes, Anna.
I just want to clarify something.
Yes, please.
That the guy, back to the guy with the partner with another partner.
Yeah.
You said that he is receiving the energy and he is redirecting it to another guy, creating this guy the way he is.
The way he perceives him.
Yes.
Right.
So, but you said that nobody is responsible for creating us or making us the way we are. So,
I understand what you're asking. Can I answer?
mm,
Right. So we have respective lives. I'm not creating you. But when I choose that perception, when he chooses a perception that his partner is a thief and is not going to pay him, partner doesn't have an intention of paying him because he thinks he's right. That this guy just latched onto the company, spent 20 years doing nothing. Meanwhile, the partner really had all the ideas. So they're respectively on the same vibratory state. So they encounter each other on that state, meaning I have a perception of you and I encounter you on the level of blame. You blame and I blame. And I get to see what my blame looks like because my life unfolded because of certain circumstances, because of someone causing it. Well, you live in the same vibration. And so I encounter you so I can verbalize to you, Anna, what are you talking about? That's not the way it is. You did that to yourself. Well, I'm saying it because I need to hear it because we're both living in that vibratory state. You're responsible for you and I'm responsible for me. When I refined myself from blaming, accusing, reacting, overanalyzing, infusing my perception and my abilities into knowing what you think, I encountered this love. And it's unsoiled love. It doesn't have an agenda. It's a soul that lives completely in what is and doesn't have an agenda to set the record straight, or at least she doesn't anymore. She wakes up in the morning and sings to her dogs. I earned that. Why? Because I refined my insanity and decided to have God rather than blame, accusation, perception, the need to be right, the need to set the record straight, to constantly dictate my outcomes based on what was and based on my misconception of how I effectively created my reality to be where I am. And I've always been in the right place because if I look back, I was just an effective co-creator of my own reality, even when I lived in Manhattan with you and went to restaurants every day and hung out, right? We created that together. We chose a vibration and this is where we live. I have nobody to blame for that. That was no one's fault. This is where I was. It's what we enjoyed. And so we did it, right? So any conflict that involved the interaction, I didn't suffer from you. I suffered from me, my disorganization, my inability to move forward, my hangups with myself, my reactions. So then I encounter an individual who I can react to because they're not a mirror. They're a physical manifestation of the inner me. And I can stamp my feet and accuse you of all that and keep myself in a loop of an internal dialogue of what you did and how you were. I'm not interested. It doesn't make me successful or effective. I don't care. More importantly, not only I do not care, I want love. I don't want that other garbage. It doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve you. So I want to move forward. That's how I moved forward. That's how I got this. This meaning my wife. So let's go on to the next question and we'll go segue into somebody raise their hand. Mariana, please.
Hi, how are you guys?
Hi.
I wanted to ask you, until you get resolved completely, I mean, I think it's before we die, who can be completely resolved, no?
No.
But how
It's
do
a
you
process.
deal with all the things that happen in your life? I mean, when you see something you don't like or you encounter the conflict, then you should know that it's for you, it's meant to be for you, for your resolving. And I understand that, but I have to solve it in physically with that person. I cannot stand there and say, okay, keep on cursing me because or stealing me, because I know this is me for myself. So how can I resolve things in with the other person?
So I
And
can
at the
tell
same,
you by, just because if I may, I mean, you put yourself out there by asking this question, but I know you. So I can tell you. So,
okay, I didn't ask anything. Thank you.
okay.
Bye.
Because of your need to resolve it right now, right now, right now. I need to set the record straight right now. I need it right now. It doesn't happen that way. I want to remind you of something, that if the nuance stops. Maria, can you mute yourself?
No, I was
Oh, Marus.
they're both mothers.
So, right. Once the nuance stops, you're done. You don't need to be here anymore.
I think also if you look at it from the point of view that everything that happens to you, let's say you encounter someone who's cursing at you or stealing from you in the moment, it's 100% you. Then you get to look at that situation from a different perspective, because now you're literally looking at yourself standing in front of you who's doing this to you.
What are they doing? They're minimizing you and calling you names and belittling you. You do that perfectly to yourself, but you don't like it when it's done to you. So then what you need to do is not to correct them unless they put their hands on you or they hate you. That's different. But if they don't touch you, you need to sit and stand in the process. You can react, you can have an exchange of words, but the moment you react and start yelling and screaming, I had one of those incidents recently doing security. And I can tell you, of course, my wife said, don't do it. But I did it anyway. I was just upset. And so the guy got to me because he wanted to come to our house of worship and outside and insinuate that we don't know what we're doing and we're doing it wrong and I need to accept his faith and not mine. Meanwhile, there was nothing he was going to do. He just wanted to run his mouth. He just needed to be right. And so in the moment, instead of allowing him to run his mouth, I needed to be right. And I reacted. Well, I reacted, I strain my nervous system, I create acid, I increase my heart rate, and I got drained from it. I drained my personal supply. Now imagine how many times you engage in conflicts like this and completely destroy yourself. And more, remember, the nervous system lives in the energy of the soul. So I let him pull me into conflict. I let him. More importantly, he was just talking nonsense. He doesn't know what he's saying. He has no idea what he's talking about. And I don't need to, in the moment, to set the record straight. But as long as he doesn't do anything physical to me, I could come back. When I came home, I had a moment to think about it. I didn't need to engage with him. But I was verbalizing everything that I needed to hear. So I'm not telling you to be abused, by no means. It says if someone comes to harm you, you have to kill them. You have to protect yourself. I'm not saying, but when you have an opportunity, look at how you devalue yourself. And if you're tired of the nuance, I promise you, the moment you say, I'm just tired of the nuance, I don't want to do it anymore, you don't need to be here anymore.
I think the nuance is constant.
It is constant. Thank God for the nuance.
Every day, one way or another, we have something that we can look at and that we can work on. And if we see these opportunities as, okay, what's my part in this? How am I, what is it that I'm doing or thinking or feeling that it's bringing this up to my attention so I can fix. What is it that I need to fix within myself? What is it that I need to correct? That's bringing this extreme situation in front of me, right? Somebody cursing or stealing from me. Is that happening to me just because I just happen to coincidentally go through it?
I didn't. I
Well,
just want to make sure that it's understood. You know, I didn't read these concepts in a wellness book, and I wasn't observant. I kind of vacillated and was divided for many years since 2006 about being completely observant. Some years I was, and some years I wasn't. Certain things I kept. Praying, I kept on. You know, I thought of myself as naturally spiritual because of what I do for a living. But the truth is, observance has to be yours. I cannot insinuate that I'm praying for others, therefore I'm good. No. I could be 12 to 14 hours a day praying for others, but I didn't get up in the morning and pray for myself. And I didn't express gratitude for where I am, which means I didn't give myself an opportunity to receive. Therefore, the prayer that I'm doing for others is null and void, because then I'm defined by my sense of urgency for others and not for myself. I'm not important, they are. And that's how a lot of my community, especially in the Chabad community, the modern Orthodox and religious folks, they deplete themselves because they run around fishing for good deeds instead of really doing a good deed and attending to themselves so they can be the change they want to see in the world.
and I think this, I mean, everything we've talked about, really, our actions and our choices go back to choosing life.
Yep.
Go back to not planning to fail. Go back to when we live in worst case scenario and we're always waiting to fail, or, oh my God, this is gonna happen. And what if this happens? And what if I fall when I walk out? And what if he doesn't give me? Or what if what if, which doesn't even exist, then we're planning for something that hasn't happened, and we're not even planning for something good to happen. We're planning for something bad to happen that we don't want.
It applies in many situations. For those of you that have had sessions and have been to retreats, some of you know, one of you guys called me from a hospital and said, "Oh, my grandmother's in the hospital." I said, "Stop imagining things you don't want for your grandmother. Imagine what you do want." It's very hard to maintain yourself that way. But what helps you maintain what you want is engaging in receiving, making yourself important, getting up, attending to your ritual life first, and then you can effectively direct and be an active co-creator of reality instead of living at the mercy of reality and insinuate that everything is happening to you. The reason God set before me life and death, he said, therefore choose life.
Life and death have I set before you, blessing and curse, and you shall choose life.
Why choose life? What does that mean? Some people don't want to live. Well, if you choose constantly to have an obstacle, then it becomes so. I years ago, I treated a kid who had put a 220, some insane engine on his motorcycle that his mother gave him as a gift. And she was a leader of a major union. In fact, she was the head of the television union for New York City. I think maybe even nationally. So people were terrified of her. When I went to the hospital, she was hysterical, crying. And she said, I want to take my son's place. I'd rather be in his place. Bring him back. I said, you don't need to take his place. Let's sit down and breathe. And you're going to see that the machine that's giving him breath will change its capacity. And we did it, and it worked. Why? Because she's not trying to be a martyr and give herself and submit herself. She's the one that got on the bike to begin with. So who's responsible for him being in a coma from riding a motorcycle that has 2,200 cc's or 220 horsepower from it? She's responsible because she's non-participant. She's absent. She's always in her work. She gave him the bike to placate him. He crashed.
But she had an opportunity in the moment to see how her thoughts and her actions in the moment, by breathing, she could immediately affect reality, and more, even more a reality that it was her son. No,
Yeah,
it was her son. His breath.
More importantly, if you can capture yourself from sinking into the insanity, then you can use your power to affect anything. Like the guy in the lawsuit, instead of being consumed of how bad his former partner is, he can choose to use his power to change his perception of his partner and really get paid again. He's preventing himself from getting paid. She was preventing her child from getting off of life support because she wants to martyr herself now. Wait a minute. That's not going to help. That's not going to do anything. You can't lay down instead of him. That's his process. But you can help his process as a mother for all you mothers. I want to get into parenting because of Charlie, because of where we are. I want to talk about parenting. We have a few minutes. So the theme of this class was choosing life and having conviction. And for those of you that are friends with me on Facebook, I wrote a letter to Charlie Kirk because I respected him, not for anything else other than the fact that he was able to encounter these ludicrous, insane people who challenged their baseless opinions, their 21-year-old dingbats who don't know anything about anything, and they stamped their feet needing to be right, and he wouldn't react to them. He never reacted. He would look at them and give them a concrete response that they can apply to their intellect. And you can literally, if you watch him perform and put on his show or whatever he did, you could see the changes in their eyes because he didn't feed into their insanity and their accusation and their abusive language. He would give them a remedy and give them direction. And you can see their eyes change in the moment because they started to question their baseless nonsense. That's godliness. You know, some of you just piss me off because you don't understand what I'm talking about. And my wife will say, why do you think she comes to these classes, she teaches these classes with me? Because I'm accused of speaking about things and people don't understand. Well, why don't you understand? What's the problem? So then she kind of she understands me completely, so she has an ability to water it down a little to make it palatable, right? With her smile and her love. And so I wanted to honor Charlie because he's a fantastic parent. And I think I'm a pretty good one too, because I don't hit, I don't yell unless I have to. And I constantly give direction. I don't get frustrated with my children. Even my oldest, who's of questionable character. He constantly needs direction. And I don't mind being frustrated by their need to grow up. But if you infuse yourself and you get frustrated by their lack of understanding and they're doing something that you don't like, look at yourself. You know, I had someone call me and say, oh, my child is a heroin addict and she's living here and she's constantly calling me and accusing me of my shortcomings and how bad of a mother I am and so on. And I said, well, oh, she also says, you know, my child is a prostitute. I said, well, what does that mean to you? What is prostituting? Not knowing your value, right? Not knowing what you're worth and just selling your body instead of knowing your value. Do you know your value? You have a drink every time you come home. You don't know your value. How is your substance abuse any different from hers? You're just sitting in your house. She's running the streets. She's got the energy to run the streets and you don't. It's no different. So with parenting, it's the biggest opportunity. They keep us honest, our kids. It's the clearest opportunity we have to recognize ourselves. If you give yourself an opportunity and you don't like your child's actions or their inconsistency or their substance abuse, ask yourself why your children are looking to numb themselves. Because you're numb. You're unavailable. You're a torso, a body with a huge intellect, but you're emotionally unavailable because you're constantly looking to numb yourself. So then if you're numb, then your children are not receiving emotional support. They're receiving calculated intellectual fear and perception based on a framework that doesn't really work. I don't know, when I talked to them about the guy, the parent that asked me about schools, I think I told you in the last class, I was in synagogue and some really successful executive who just joined our congregation asked me, how are the schools in this area? I said, well, schools are great, depends on what you want. He said, well, I don't want to send my kids to religious school. I want them to learn history, science, and culture. I said, well, if you send them to regular school, secular school, they'll learn how to calculate their outcomes and live in a box, in a framework. If you send them to religious school, they'll learn about God and understand unlimited possibility. So you choose. He's a CFO, which is Chief Financial Officer. He's all about calculating outcomes. So if you teach your children about godliness and understand that everything is a soul and everything is a process, it depends on them how much they apply themselves and how they direct their energy. If their light is on, they'll have conviction and see their path. If their light's off, they'll scramble in the material world and grasp at straws and not know how to reconnect. They'll choose two things. One is to numb themselves through substance abuse, or they'll decide that they're bored with their gender, and that's what's happening in the world. They don't have a sense of directions. There's no allegiance to anything. There's no commitment. Nothing is sacred. Nothing has any sense of urgency. We always go back to this point. It's very important. It's the standard that we set for our children. My ex-wife used to say, I don't like religion. It imposes too many boundaries. They'll figure it out later on. No, they won't. If you give a 3-year-old a menu, he's going to choose ice cream. Even an 8-year-old. My 9-year-old chooses ice cream, unless I tell her, you need protein. You need something that's going to sustain you. This is what it does for you. This is how it benefits you. Well, she said, well, then I'll like a burger. So if you engage them in understanding and the value of having light in their souls that completely illuminates their minds, they've stopped being consumed by the need to calculate every single outcome, and they choose a framework that works for them so they can be consistent in co-creating what they want instead of what they don't want. Oh, I go to school and I take liberal arts. You understand what that means? Liberal arts means I have no clue of what I want. I don't have a sense of direction. But if the light is on and there's prayer at home and the mommy sets a standard and the daddy sets a standard and daddy trains and prays and does yoga and attends to him and eats properly, well, then they're going to do that because they don't learn anything in school. they learn from home. You set the standard of what they learn.
And if we have a strong standard from home, they're also less influenced by whatever it is that they learn from school that they shouldn't actually learn, especially in nowadays society. So we do have to be strong in raising the kids at home and really instill the values that they need from home. They can't hear.
Any questions? Please tell them. Go.
What did Rabbi resolve? Do you know?
Which one?
The story about him crying about.
Well, think about what it means. I mean, there's all kinds of commentary on this case, but what does it mean to have relations with corpses? I mean, it's the most heinous, disgusting, inhumane crossing of all boundaries, right? So then the rabbi needs to ask himself, where is there the need to dishonor? Well, how is he dishonoring? There's no commentary that says he figured out what it meant to him, but there is commentary that says he recognized that there's something in him. He cried. This is why he cried. He said to his secretary, he said, I want to know what I did and what my belief is that I brought something like this into my life. It's extreme. You know, remember, when you're connected, I want to address this also. I'm not bringing this kid up for no reason. Many people didn't like him, but he's brilliant. And I'm going to share this in public, and I know it's going to go on YouTube, but it's a very interesting, realized way of looking at reality. None of us need to accept anybody as our personal savior. Yeshua, otherwise known as Jesus, was an extraordinary human being that people still 2,600 years talk about. He truly understood reality, and he understood the power of deliberate intent, and he was an extraordinary human being. But the moment I insinuate that I have to accept him as a savior, I'm choosing to say that a human being has power to save me and not my connection to the creative force. And if you notice, which is the most unfortunate, horrible thing, I cried for 2 days. I am devastated that they killed this kid. I'm devastated for his wife, for his children, but think about this. The neck is the bridge between the intellect and the heart. If you insinuate that a human being accepting his way is one thing, but accepting him as a savior, you're insinuating that he can save you from what you are, or absolve you somehow, or engaging yourself in considering him Lord and God and so on. You are deviating from the creative force. That means your intellectual understanding is separate from your heart. The shot that killed him was in his neck. The bridge between the intellect and your feelings. You cannot bring people, there's nothing other than God. Nothing. There were extraordinary men that walked this earth. There are extraordinary people that understand consciousness. There are people that set a standard. Yeshua set a standard. He truly understood consciousness. So did Moses. So did the other prophets that walked this earth. They were all in some way extraordinary. If people are still talking about them, they must have did something right. So then, but they are not God. They're God-like because they have a soul, and their soul had an extraordinary light, and they were able.
God-like.
Right. So you can't insinuate, and Charlie's comments were very often, my Lord and Savior. or the Lord, and so on and so forth. I don't argue with it. I understand the experience and I get it. I've had many of them. But you cannot pull people into believing in a human. You can understand his way, really what he said was, I'm the Father and the Father is me, which means he had God in him. And his vibrational view of reality was broader than anybody else at the time. And he understood the power of deliberate intent and how we effectively can create reality. So if you listen to his way, you can be godlike too, that way. And so just as effective as he was. But you cannot believe in a man because a man is not an unlimited source of energy. He cannot sustain you. That belief system limits your possibilities and narrows your view of reality. It brings you down vibrationally to happenstance. A shot in the neck. The neck is the dividing portion between the bridge, between the head and the heart. Charlie was brilliant and an incredible human. And I can't tell you, I wrote a letter and posted it and sent it to his email, posted it on Facebook. But he was divided between his perception, his understanding, and his feeling. And that's all I have to say about that. Questions?
Excuse me, to avoid that difference between feeling and thinking, we work on yoga.
No, we work on not being delusional. You work on, you mean how to sustain it so that you don't get sucked into it?
Yeah. How do we train that way of?
Yeah, I train. My wife and I both do Kriya, which is comes from the Sikh religion, and the Sikhs have an incredible dharma. Their understanding of reality is super conscious and incredible. And I love that they're monotheists and they believe in one God and the one creative force. They have a system of breathing, which is concrete, and it's based on the fact of that you have to do correction first and then breathe and stimulate energy that will envelop your nervous system and give you an effective way, help you be effective in co-creating. It's not breath work, bastardized, Americanized nonsense. Breath work causes you to have an emotional experience, and then there's no continuity. Kriya, yoga, gives you a set through which you can achieve resolve and sustain your energetic body at a certain vibration. And
that really strengthens the energy of the soul.
It does.
So then it affects the nervous system in a good way, so we become less reactive. And our energy, the energy of our soul, which is truly what we are souls living in the human experience, it becomes stronger, so we go through life with a stronger energy.
For those of you that are super sensitive, and there's a lot of you here, being super sensitive is an asset, right? But if you're sensitive and every time there's a rainstorm or a full moon, or your mommy said something to you, or the neighbor said your hair doesn't look good, all of a sudden you get sucked into it and paralyzed, that's it. You're done. You can't continue your endeavor because there's not enough of you to go around. So you need something to sustain your nervous system so that you don't get sucked into the insanity of the human experience.
But breathing doesn't substitute praying.
It does not. No, you can't decide you want to do yoga every day and that's going to sustain you. No.
But it's a good addition to strengthen the energy of your soul, and you'll find yourself that you'll be not only less reactive, but it calms you down, and it gives you this perception of emotional strength.
And is it the same as meditation? Is meditation in Kriya, only in Kriya, or apart from that you do that?
There's all kinds of meditation. I love Dispenza, you know that. Joe is fantastic. It's the only thing that I don't like in his retreats is that he takes complete novices, total new jacks, and puts them in 4-hour meditations. It's impossible. If you have
To
incredible
hold.
monkey mind and you're super sensitive, it's very hard to pull yourself out of your insanity. So there has to be vigorous training. That's why I insist that when people come here that they kickbox, because it engages you, it pulls you out of your aggression, and it engages you in having consistent physical exertion. Or Kriya. When you do Kriya, it's extremely challenging. When you push yourself beyond your comfort level and engage yourself in receiving oxygen and energy for your brain, that the physical material need to be right and the insanity of the human experience, it subsides.
It's like you're fueling your soul more, and then all of a sudden the soul is the one that takes control over the decisions that the body is making.
That's what it means to bring heaven to earth. You make your soul bigger than your body. Then you're less consumed by your calculations or your need to be right in your delusion, and you become more at peace with yourself. Then the light comes on and you can make a concrete decision about your direction. Then you don't need somebody.
So to become aligned with Hashem, with God, first we need to align our hearts and our minds, and it's like all straight.
I mean, I don't know, it doesn't have to be straight, it could be gay. No. Mariana, imagine this. We all grew up with a certain rhetoric, right? I never even thought about these concepts until I was older in age. But think about this. Imagine that world that fuels everything was right behind you. And this, when you're not aligned to it, you're consumed by your calculation and your physical material what ifs and all your future talk and all the nonsense. But when you raise your vibration, you pray, you meditate with intention, you do Kriya, all of a sudden that world that's behind you, that's fueling this holographic silhouette of you, it becomes bigger and it fuels every cell, and you fill out the space that you're in. You become more that than this, because this will put me in a corner. This right here, I could talk myself right into a corner and make all of you bad in 3 seconds, less than 3 seconds, 0.2 seconds. But as long as I'm more aligned to that world, whatever your religion gives you, that's the vibration that you are. It provides you with a methodical way of aligning to that world. And it makes you effective in this one. If you're not religious or observant, then you're ineffective. You have no allegiance. You clearly don't understand how godliness works. And you're just babbling and wasting your time trying to achieve something. It's not going to happen for you. If you're pursuing new endeavors, you need the energy of God. That's how your stage happens. You are the light of your stage. So whether it's, pumping your stomach, moving your spine, praying, getting down, whatever base you came with, that's the vibration that works for you, because you wouldn't be in the human experience in that religion if it wasn't your vibrational set. You came to overcome. Any questions? No? Going once? Going twice? Done. Thank you for coming and for listening to us.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Bye, guys.
Talk
Thank
to you
you.
later. Bye.
Bye.